that many authors have different opinions on where this chakra is. Some of them have it out in the etheric and so forth. I took all this material that I had, and years ago I had used this material. Remember I showed it in the beginning. I don't know, did I give you a copy of this? I think I did. Didn't I give you a copy of the etheric, the layers of the etheric?
I thought we did.
I thought we did in the beginning. Well, I'm showing you this because I believe that it's right here, the 10th chakra is below your feet. Because what it does, see, it's following the etheric. You see this? See how we're coming from the crown and the etheric is coming all the way down into here. Now you'll find out that this chakra is located like about 4 feet under your feet. So when we tell you to ground, it's very important to ground when you're in this work. Because if you don't, a lot of things happen in your life and you're wondering why, all right? The colors of it is earth tone. Like in your oranges, your browns, your yellows, your green, anything that's earthy, which could be, the earth has many different colors. If you go throughout the United States, you'll see all that, many different colors. Now, this is the interesting part, which the development of this chakra, what happens with this development? You develop this chakra in pre-conception and at conception. Now, this is the part where actually the soul in our 10th chakra knows before conception. Before our parents are even considering having a child, you are already targeted to have that child, okay? Because that soul is looking, and what the spirit is looking, excuse me. And this helps the spirit form into the physical. This is the chakra that helps form. Because now think about this. When the soul comes down, the spirit comes down, it's very high energy, okay? So it has to have grounding. It has to have the grounding. Remember we talked about the cords coming down. So it has to have cords coming down to ground it, that in order for it to form into the physical. Does that make sense to everybody? If it doesn't, let's hear some questions. Because remember we have all these cords coming in. So the spirit has these cords coming in, and it's kind of looking around all over. Well, where can I go to ground? Where can I go to ground? So it has chosen, like the parents, before they even know they're going to do it. So then it comes down into this. See, it's coming into the etheric here, okay? It's coming into probably this etheric field that is the 8th field coming out of the 8th and 9th chakra. Remember we talked about that, conception, preconception, what we bring with us, and so forth. So it would come all the way down here, and it would end up in the grounding to bring that all forth, that it can come and hold. Now when I was studying this, actually, you know, we are all materialized spirit. Ourselves, every one of us is a materialized spirit in one form. We're materialized in the earth. That's why we do believe that spirit can manifest in a material form as we believe in our spiritual aspect. Now, what I'm wondering, this is just my thought, is it possible that these babies that have crib deaths haven't grounded their spirit strong enough? You know what I mean? That they haven't grounded. So when they sleep, they go into this, they wonder, their cord goes back in there. Does that make sense? Because do they know why there's a crib death? They still don't know why. So this is what I was thinking when I was doing this. And we know that the 9th and 10th chakras also carry the genes and all of this for us to come into from our past lives and generations. It carries in these chakras, which most people, with most healers, when they do the physical, they forget about the etherical. Now, I know Jack teaches this, and I know we were always taught this, that you go through the etheric body to get to the physical body. You have to open up. You see how you have to, it could be from the crown up, you have to open up the etheric. This is the etheric coming out here, all your bodies, your layers. So you have to open up that etheric to come in. And sometimes the healer will pick up that part in one of the etheric and they'll step back. Do you ever see that? Where they just step back because that etheric might be irregular, that won't let them through. So then they know they have to work in that etheric before they get into the physical. Does that make sense? Because everything is what? Formed in spirit first. Okay. Everything is first in spirit. Then it kind of dormants, this 10th chakra. Think of your teenage years, how flighty you are and how all over the place you are, and you don't care, especially the flower children. How about, that's a good example, that's my era, where they just had a freedom about themselves, you know? So, but then, about 35, now stop and think about this, from about 35 into the 45s is when this starts to reactivate. And it gets challenged. We get challenged then. What are we going to do in our life? Then we look at our life and you say, wow, I got to be true to myself to get going here. Do you know what I mean? Everybody starts opening up and getting serious thinking about who they are. How about all of us? Think about what time, how old were you when you got involved? How old, Jack?
I was
40?
no,
35? 30.
35.
Okay.
When we met down.
Okay. How about Nancy? Well, we know how we were. We were young. Alice, how old were you?
Involved in what?
To get involved and knowing there's more truth to what you've heard. There's more truth. Then you start opening up and questioning and saying, what do I need for me to open up? You're being challenged to get grounded again, to get yourself moving ahead. You start being more truer to yourself, truer to what you're going to do in the future, how you're going to do this. Now, then I was thinking about, well, maybe that's what they call the middle life crisis, when we all go kind of off the beam because we don't know who we are, where we're going. Okay, or we think we don't have it green where we are, and we look for the greener. And some people have middle-age crises all their life. Every 5 years, they think something's greener on the other side, and it's not. It's greener right where you were, but you never realized that at the time. Okay, and our life changes. We start thinking of different issues in our life, and this is when a lot of times people start thinking, maybe this is when the past lives start coming into effect. We have deja vu, and we think, now why did I was here? And that usually happens when you're older, not unless you have a freedom from growing up to think those things. And most of us have been very programmed from organized religion. Now, what is this? It's like the database. It contains all the elements. It contains the fire, the earth, the water, and the air, all in that grounding chakra. Now, how do you feel sometimes when you do that grounding? This is why it's so important. Because actually, remember we do the Ida and the Begala. Remember the dance? The male and the female, how it dances. Well, now, all of that energy that we have, it goes down into that chakra and it gets cleansed. It gets cleansed from the earth. What does the earth do to water? Let's look at it this way. When water is purified, when it comes out of a natural spring, it goes through layers of rock, all these layers, to be purified. So it is with the spirit when we have issues in our body, that it can go down into the ground. And it can be, we're working through all of this, remember? Remember how we ground it really good the first couple times, how we really went into the grounding? Well, now we know that we're going down there to purify these things, because we know that the earth will do that. And especially our feet, because what does the earth do? What does earth do? It nurtures. It nurtures. It keeps our plants growing. It's substance. Without the earth, would we have vegetation? No. Would we have trees? No. So there's a purpose for everything in creation. And this is where sometimes we get into the past life issues, and it matters what happens, and everyday matters that we can collect. But we got to remember, we can transmute everything through our feet to be cleansed and purified, because it's the seed of energy, it's the seed of information. Remember, the ninth chakra, think about the cycle, going down to the feet. What is the key word to the whole thing? Grounding. It's very important to be grounded. And the energy type is very basic, and it's essential to living, to everyday living. Because the physical communication with this chakra it's going to be like we can just cleanse the area. It's like a dumping ground. But we know that God created the earth in order to cleanse. To cleanse. So with our intention, God bless you, with our intention, we can cleanse whatever is necessary. This is so important. Now, we know also that the women store this energy in their abdomen. Their second, remember the second chakra? That's where women store this energy. In men, they store it in the solar plexus. They store this energy in the solar plexus. So this is why sometimes men can be, women can have those emotional issues coming from the solar plexus, from the second chakra, and men can kind of be a little bit stronger, the masculine energy. But not all the time, not all the time. So we have to, this is the part where we also, between these two chakras, it also protects us. It's the solar plexus tells us about dangers and so forth. And so we need all these necessary things as part of the physical communication going into the grounding. That's why we need the grounding. You understand? That's why we need to be grounded. That we understand, that we get that feeling in all our things. Now, the spiritual part is it's the umbilical cord for the spirit to come down into the physical body. It's part of that imaginary cord coming down and connecting to the physical body. Also, the intuitive communication, it serves locking down a place for the soul. In other words, that part of coming down, that cord coming down, is so the soul can find a materialized body, that the soul can materialize the body. That's why a lot of people get the soul. When you ask the definition of the soul, they will think it's the physical body. Did you ever hear that? Do you know who does that? Edgar Casey. He thinks this is the soul. Okay? On some levels I've read, and I couldn't understand that, but whatever. People have their own things. Now, what are some of the problems that we have with this, when we're not grounded? When we're not grounded, it's foot, ankle, and leg problems. Does that make sense? When we don't ground ourselves. When we ground ourselves, what do we have? A firm foundation. When we also have, remember we move the root also from from our base chakra, from our tailbone. Remember, we do the 3, the feet, and the tailbone. So we have a firm triangle foundation, okay? And also, we can have this adrenaline problems with the 2nd and 3rd chakras with this. And also, which I have to laugh with this one, because you know what? Weight issues come from sometimes not being grounded. Okay? Now, since this opened my eyes, I'm going, oh, okay. But also, we have annoyance issues. This is where a lot of the times, if you're not grounded, you can have a neurosis, you can have psychosis, and that kind of thing. Because you know what happens? If you're not grounded, what did we talk about? You get into those levels of spirit, and you get hooked in on that level, and you're going to stay with all of those people. Don't forget, when you die, you're not going to be a saint. If you were someone on this earth that wasn't a nice person, you're not going to be nice the minute you die. No way. And a lot of people think it's automatic. It's not. Because you have to go back to the learning lessons of life. A better understanding, yes.
What about people who are not nice and 2 or 3 years before they die, they like make a complete turn?
Okay, what they're doing.
Spiritually, they sense. They sense.
They know.
How long to go. And so they will subconsciously, in their higher self, start making the changes that they should have made during their life.
They're preparing. Right. They're preparing for that, and they know. And you'll see that so often. And then you'll see others get very nasty when they're on their deathbed.
Go just the opposite.
They go the opposite because they're fighting life so hard. Plus, they have what? What do they have? Old programming, where the hell issues come in. That we've been programmed, I think. When you hear a lot of these preachers, when they speak about hell and the devil and that, how do you feel? Don't you feel like all crunched up and think, oh my goodness, I'll never get there. I know I'm going to hell. You know, but if they look around, you know, my mother always said, hell is within life itself. When you look at life and the issues that you go through in life, doesn't it seem like hell? We were all in those pits with vipers, weren't we, at one time? Absolutely. But we're working our way out. Yes, John.
Can I say something here?
Sure, put your light on.
You know, John has been in the medical field for many years, and he worked in the state mental hospital. He also worked in a regular hospital. And those who had the hardest time passing over were priests and nuns. And they turned real nasty and ugly and cursed and damned God. I gave you my whole life, and how can you do this to me? The pain and the suffering. Why must I suffer? And they go absolutely bonkers because they realize that all those years of being brainwashed of what's right and what's wrong, you know, isn't going to help them any by giving up a so-called normal life. Yet, if you said it was really weird. Yeah, really weird.
That's so true, and you can see that too, how someone can die so peacefully that was ornery all their life, you know. It's just opposite how the spirit reacts. But when we have this chakra that's not grounded, I want you to listen. Do you ever see someone that's really spacey and out of there half the time? That certainly means they're not grounded. When they cannot focus, like when they're always on focusing, like a lot of times you'll see children like that, when they can't focus on something. And that's because they're so busy, you know, their grounding little chakras aren't there, you know, and they're all over the place. So as grandmas and as parents, don't think we're here have any parents, but as grandmothers and grandfathers, what we can do is guide that child now when they're airy and try to get them ground. It's so funny when I was doing this, because when I start doing this, I get into a state where I in hard times to come back, and I get like sharp, because I'm trying to get myself together. And today, and I want to bring it with you, I went to pick up my papers, and this black cellulite with red. I think it was cellulite. It looks like that white cellulite I have, but it's black. Fell there, I'm going, well, it's telling me something. I need to get grounded. Okay? Now I'm going to hold that, because I don't know where it came from. I never saw it before. So I'm thinking, thank you, it might be an airport. I don't know about it. But I'm going to check it, because I thought, this is so unusual. At first I thought it was coal, but it's not. It looks like that white, I think it's called cellulite, that long piece of... Selenite. What was I saying? Selenite. No, not selenite. I can't say it. Well, anyway, so when this happens, also when you have a trauma, it can knock if you are grounded and you have a trauma in your life, it can make you that way. It can pull you out from being grounded. And I'll tell you, it has an inability. Anytime you see a person with an inability to handle stress, they need to ground. They need to ground. That's a very important thing. And sometimes we have people that just have a hard time dealing with everyday activities. Like they go to work and everything's wrong at work because it's all the people, okay? How many times you hear this? Or they have to do everything and no one does nothing. That kind of thing. It's always something that they're not looking within themselves, that they need to ground. Anger is one of them. When we're disconnected from the grounding, we get caught up into this etheric, and it could be anger in that etheric, because we have all those levels, and we got to work through that. So, how many people do you know that have a hard time separating feelings from real reality? In other words, someone can say something, and a lot of times we don't understand it, and it's real to us, but it wasn't meant to be any kind of offensive. It wasn't meant to be offensive. And people understand it because what happens is we take it wrong, we take it personal. This is all in this grounding chakra, okay? And when this is a disconnected, when this has a disconnection, when this chakra is disconnected, and I want you to hear this, because we don't usually talk about things like this, but when the grounding is disconnected, it leaves you wide open for a psychic attack. Okay? A lot of people don't believe. How many people believe in an attack, a psychic attack? Absolutely. A lot of people deny it, but it's fact. But we have to know, now that we know that the minute we feel something that's on, you ground yourself, because you want to be firm to face the action, okay? Remember the action, solar plexus, and abdomen. So, this is also the chakra that holds inherited heritage and past issues. Like a lot of times our inheritance from way back when can affect us. And that, look at things like, I want to look at things like severe blood disease that's been passed over generations and generations, things like that. Those health issues can be with this chakra, that it wasn't grounded proper, or it wasn't cleared before they died. So if someone gets all of this cleared before they die, they won't have this to bring back. It's going to be gone. I'll say about a month ago, Lloyd and I had the opportunity to work on someone who I went right up into this part, because I knew it was coming from this part. I knew it was coming from, that it didn't belong to the individual. And because it's a long term. So And afterward, I'm thinking, wow, I never had that happen before. And when Lloyd does healing and he crosses like this, did you ever see him? How many people saw him ever do that? What does that mean? He's crossing, he's connecting. He's connecting and you can get rid of it. What do we do when we do plugs on a motor? Don't we have to reverse it sometimes? You have to reverse that action. So, and a lot of times we do things like that, we're not even aware why we're doing it. You'll see that when different people, the way they heal. Everybody heals differently. Who's to say you're wrong? Who's to say they're wrong? See what I'm saying? This is so important. So we got to remember through this chakra, we have all our ancestral stuff coming with us too, if it wasn't grounded before they died. So when these people come forth and they have this pleasantness right before they die, like say maybe months, a year, or a couple of years like you said, they're cleansing that out and they won't have to come back and go with the same issues. But if a person is angry and they go out with that anger and that fight, we know they're going to have to come back because of their ancestral background somewhere. They never cleaned it up. That's with maybe our families. How many people at the last time want to get those issues straightened? They want to get rid of them issues on their deathbed. And that's so good. That's so good. And I know a lot of times Alice was with me when one person that died and was fighting it so bad that we had to talk him down, and it was because of who he was going to meet on the other side. Until we reversed that whole thing, and I found out someone he loved very dearly put that in his mind and he could reach out and take it. And that was our friend David. I went home that day and I went through some of his things and his grandmother's picture fell on the floor. And I picked it up. I said, that's it. He's got to look for Daisy. He was worried about meeting his mother. Ancestral. See what I'm saying? And then he could kind of go from there. He could fly by there. So we know that all of this, we have to think of the earth as a big lung working through us every day. And we have to breathe in those elements. You know, years ago they told you to go out and touch the earth and hug a tree. And why do you think that was?
To get grounded.
Absolutely.
Lay on the ground.
Lay in the ground, lay in the sand, or whatever you want to do. But it releases all your systems, so we know we can all be transformed. How about that? Any questions? Yes.
Can you tell us some easy way to ground ourselves?
Okay.
Very simple, and also to help kids ground themselves.
Okay.
Teach them to hug trees.
Do you know what is a good thing for a child? There's a thing in yoga where Jeannie does it with Nicholas sometimes. There's certain animal, they say, okay, this is an animal. Matter of fact, there's, I think, a book downstairs on that, where they do different things, and that could be grounding for the child. Like different beginners yoga things with children. That would be an easy way because they get in the earth. They can pretend they're a tree, and their roots go all the way down.
And my daughter has a yoga tape for babies and toddlers.
Okay.
And it's really cute. And every time she puts it in the car, the baby stops crying. All the kids relax. What's that?
See that? See that? It's the music, the tones, and everything that are going with from the etheric. It's all coming through the etheric. So we got to remember, we should get that tape and play it.
I've been trying to, a local lady actually made it. It's not on the market.
Oh, good.
I've been trying to get it.
Well, you should give it to Karen and let her burn some for us.
She promises me.
But anyway, isn't that so true?
I don't know how to get it.
Yeah, we'll get the name of it, we'll work on it. See, sometimes, isn't it true, through a child, remember we're toning, we're doing all this? That is to prepare you